Hello and welcome. Welcome to this short and sweet little video about the concept surfing on impulses, first coined by Russ Harris, who is displayed down there at the bottom and who you will hear more about in the next slide. Russ Harris, displayed right there with his curly brown hairs, is an ACT therapist. ACT is an abbreviation for acceptance and commitment therapy, a form of therapy that has really been making waves lately in the psychological landscape. It's closely related, or some might even call it a subform of cognitive behavioral therapy. Russ Harris is one of the most well-known members of the school of ACT therapists. He wrote the book The Happiness Trap, for which you can see a nice cover down there. It's one of the possible covers. My cover has just a giant smiley face on it, which I also think is still pretty symbolic for what the therapy is trying to achieve. The main idea behind ACT, or acceptance and commitment, is actually, well, pretty much stated right there in the name. Acceptance as the first part, commitment as the second part. The big realization that some of the founders of this form of therapy had is that a lot of therapy that already exists is focused on diminishing complaints and getting rid of negative thoughts, feelings and impulses, things like that. But they noticed that this is not always easy and not always helpful. And it's something that we try to do in our day-to-day life as well, and we don't get any benefits out of it. We use a lot of control strategies to get rid of negativity in our life. And that is the happiness trap. Trying to achieve happiness by trying to get rid of all the negative things. Instead of helping you getting rid of negative things or avoiding negative things like other therapy forms might do, ACT therapists try to help you to accept those negative feelings, those negative thoughts, those negative impulses, negative sensations inside your body, like for example a pain in the chest, just to give an example. Instead of trying everything in your power to get rid of it, to diminish it, to no longer feel or experience that negative feeling, they tell you like, just try to accept it. It's there. Make space for it. Make some room for it. Let it exist. But after you are successful in accepting that part of you, that negative part, and just having it remain there and making space for it, you have to commit. Commitment, that's the other part. The committing part is the action part. You've accepted those negative thoughts, feelings, sensations, everything. Now that you've accepted it, get back to your life. Really act according to your values again. Values are very, very important in the workings of ACT therapy. Using control strategies might benefit you in the short term. You will feel less bad for a second. But true commitment to your values and really partaking in actions, in committed actions, so repeated actions towards your values, that's what really makes your life more meaningful, more rich. If you live according to your values, you will live a full life. And that is kind of the end goal for these ACT therapists. Now, talking about impulses. Well, this video is of course about impulses, so I should explain what they are first. An impulse is actually the term for the feeling that you have to do something, or you have to perform a certain behavior. I have the impulse to smoke when I feel sad. I have the impulse to eat when I feel bad. Just like things that you intend to do and you feel a bodily drive to do so. Some of these impulses we call drifts, and they are of course the basic impulses that every single human has, like sleeping or having sex or eating or drinking. Now impulses, you will all probably agree with this, they take the form of a wave. So what that means is that they just start, there's no impulse, and then the impulse starts climbing. Hunger, for example, it starts climbing, and then it reaches a peak. Your peak hunger level. This is when you're at your most hungry, and then either you satisfy the impulse and it goes down, or if you don't do anything about it, if you don't eat in the end, you will start to feel less hungry as well, because your body will just start to accept it. So it's a wave function. And exactly that aspect of impulses is why Russ Harris talks about surfing on them, because you have to surf the wave, you know. And the surfing of a wave is of course symbolic as well for acceptance, accepting impulses and just riding that wave, you know, just riding it. You do not build a dam to stop the wave, because, and this is a very clear-cut example of what acceptance means, if you build a dam, you can see that as a control strategy for when negative things are happening or when a negative impulse is happening. If you build a dam, the water just splashes up against it. It splashes up against the dam and it makes a lot of noise. It just is very chaotic. It goes everywhere. It's very aggressive. And it's not really the best approach. If you, however, surf the wave, you let yourself be carried by it. You let the wave guide you. And you just go over it and you go past it and you see what's next. And that's what surfing an impulse is about, not committing to that impulse that you're feeling in that specific second. Now, there are of course impulses that you should commit to, and now I hear you thinking, how do I know which impulses to act upon and which impulses not to act upon? Well, Russ Harris and the other ACT therapists actually propose a very, very simplistic scheme of deciding whether you should act upon an impulse or not. And it's shown right here in the following slide. Should you act upon your impulses? That's of course an important question, because some impulses are just nice and they're necessary. If you feel the impulse to eat because you're hungry, one of your drifts is acting up, well, eat by all means. You're gonna die otherwise, you know? So some impulses are definitely important for us to act upon. But there are some impulses that are a bit more unclear. Like for example, when you get pushed when going out and you feel the impulse to immediately fight back and really fist-to-fist combat, engage in that, you know? That's a bit of a doubtful impulse. Should we act upon it or not? The one question you need to ask yourself then is, are they in line with your values? If you would act upon that impulse, would you then perform an action that is in line with what is really important in your life, your values? To go back to the example about getting pushed, are you kind of a person that really likes having borders, that likes having boundaries, that likes being strong and being witnessed as strong by others? In that case, it might be valuable for you to fight back, to immediately like ball your fists and just go at it. If you're a peaceful person and you're really not into conflicts at all, you don't want to start a fight, then you're probably just gonna say, oh no, it's no problem, and you're just gonna walk away. So then you don't act upon your impulse because it is not according to your values. And that small decision process is just what should happen with each impulse. If you feel like the impulse is in line with what your values would be demanding of you, then by all means, just act upon the impulse. But also do this in moderation, of course, because if your impulse is to have a chill life, and that means that you do nothing each and every single day, that's not the best approach either. But that is not something to fix in your impulses, that is something to fix more deeper down. You need to rethink your values in life, you know. Not the topic of this video though. And if the impulse is not in line with your values and you don't want to act upon it, then here are 6 simple steps of how to surf on your impulse and really just let yourself be guided by it, accept the impulse but not act upon it, so that you can commit to actions that are actually in line with your values. Acceptance and commitment. First step, observe the impulse. Really notice it in your body. Where in your body do you feel that the impulse is building up? For hunger, it might be in your stomach, for example. To go back to the example of getting pushed while going out, you might feel a warmth in your chest. Really observe where that impulse is in your body. Step 2, label the impulse. I feel like I have to. That's a nice little sentence to think about. I feel like I have to fight this person that just pushed me. I feel like I have to eat something. Observe the impulse, label the impulse, and then a critical point in acceptance and commitment theory is breathing. Breathe towards the impulse. Really let that breath go inside your body and to the location where you really felt that impulse in the first step. Don't fight it, just with a kind nature, gently breathe towards it. If you feel it in your chest, you just... and you feel that breath really trickling in down here into your esophagus, just to here. Your esophagus might be for eating, I'm not sure, but anyway, to your lungs, and just let it go around here. Let that breath go around your chest. While you're breathing, notice the evolution in the impulse, notice the waveform. You can use scores from 0 to 10 for that, for example. You can feel like, well, 5 minutes ago I was not really perturbed by my hunger, so it was a 1 maybe, but now I'm really starting to get hungry, so it's a 4, but it's still gonna reach its peak. Really observe again where you are in the evolution. And then, while breathing still, make space for the impulse. Let it exist. Breathe around it so that your body around it can kind of extend, can really make some room for it. Let it exist, accept it. And then once you have done this step, you have made room for it, you have made space for it, and you accepted it. After acceptance, always commitment. Think about your values. Think about, alright, now that this impulse is just passing me by, I know that it's a wave and I know that the wave is gonna flatten out again. What can I do in the meantime while I wait for it to go by? What action can I undertake that is in line with my values right now and which will bring me closer to a meaningful and full and rich life? So in short, surfing on impulses, the impulses you don't want to act upon because they're not in line with your values, you observe them, you label them, you breathe towards them, you notice the evolution for which you can use scores from 0 to 10. You make space for them by breathing around them, accepting their existence, and then you go over to commitment and you start committing to the values by really undertaking some actions that are in line with the actual values you have. Of course, easier said than done, and a very important part is balance. It doesn't always have to be, oh no, this impulse, I shouldn't act upon it. Eating chocolate is not healthy for me. Never eat chocolate. Again, act in moderation. It's not because something is a bit unhealthy for you that you should never do it, because you should also treat yourself. There's eudaimonia, which is about getting like real meaning, deep meaning, and there's also hedonia, which is just about feeling positive for a moment, and you have to have both. So I'm not saying that you can never have a smoke again, or never eat that nice piece of chocolate after a hard day of work. Give in to them sometimes, find that balance. But if they are not in line with your values and you are really getting a negative impact on your functioning in your life, try to surf on them, you know? Think back to this video, think back to the 6 simple steps and just try and see what works for you. Everything acceptance and commitment therapy related are things that need practice. You really need to invest the time in it, and it's gonna be hard at the start, but that is a short-term investment you make to reap the long-term benefits. I hope you found it a bit interesting, maybe you learned a thing or two from it. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one as always. Bye bye!